The nation's leader making major announcements in the lead up to general elections.
Over 26,000 persons are registered for the upcoming general election on Grand Bahama. I'm Natalia Hall. More details straight ahead.
Grand Bahama Power on the move in West Grand Bahama.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening, I'm Sabrina Brown. Thank you for joining us. In news from Parliament today, the nation's leader laying out all the facts regarding a controversial issue which has become the focus of public debate. In his contribution, the Prime Minister gave a comprehensive account of government spending and tax reductions, as he also turned his attention to that topical issue called VAT. Joan Davis-Roll reports.
In our democracy, they must come to understand those who dumb down our country with dumbed down discussions and discourse must also be aware, Mr. Speaker, that they are undermining this country when they take such a simplistic approach to important issues of this kind.
Ranking among the issues, value-added tax. The nation's leader coming to Parliament on Wednesday with what he called the VAT facts.
VAT gross collections over the 2-year period was $1.1 billion. But the net impact on revenues to the government was $756 million. So you're judging us not on 1.1 billion collected. You're judging us on $756 million. By any measure, Mr. Speaker, by any measure and any standard, a remarkable achievement while maintaining a stable economic environment. VAT was introduced without triggering a major economic contraction, despite all of the naysayers prognosticating about doom and gloom. This is worth repeating, Mr. Speaker. VAT was introduced without a recession. We had full compliance and cooperation from the private sector in introducing it. A stable economy has been maintained with the support of the private sector.
The Prime Minister says while millions of dollars have been collected from VAT, millions have also been spent by the government for major improvements, including the reduction of taxes.
Harmonization of commercial property tax rates at a lower level of 0.75% also announced. A reduction in the maximum rate of business license fees from 1.75% to 1.5%, plus a reduction in rates of 0.75% for agricultural and fisheries operated businesses, food, meat, and fruit processing, and independent fuel distributors in the Family Islands. Stamp duty on real estate transactions was lowered to 2.5%, with the VAT applying only to properties above $100,000.
The Prime Minister vowed continued transparency and accountability when it comes to the hot issue of VAT. He then made this major announcement.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to announce that the government has approved the relaxation of certain exchange control measures to provide access by certain categories of Bahamian-owned businesses to investment financing in foreign currency. This is going to be a big news for Bahamian businesses, I think. The government has also agreed to allow international banks present in our jurisdiction to have more flexibility in providing financing for residential real estate investments for non-Bahamians. Over time, Mr. Speaker, these measures are expected to have gradual positive impacts on small and medium-sized ventures, support the strengthening of linkages between tourism and other economic sectors, and provide additional stimulus to the upper end of the real estate market. The Central Bank of the Bahamas is preparing to implement the reforms within the coming days and will communicate further with the public on the details of the administrative framework.
Joan Davis-Roll, ZNS Network News.
As we move closer to the 2017 general election, tonight the Assistant Parliamentary Commissioner Reno Smith gives an update on the voter registration process on Grand Bahama. He says the numbers are increasing. In 2012, there were 26,990 persons registered for the general election. And he says to date, the numbers on the 2017 register are not far off. Italia Hall has details.
With the country's general election now imminent, some 26,962 persons are registered to date. Operations at the Parliamentary Registration Department is headed into high gear. For the first 2 weeks of the voters' cards distribution process, persons were able to retrieve their cards at the local post office in Freeport. The process was then taken into the various communities on Grand Bahama. According to the Assistant Parliamentary Commissioner Reno Smith, all cards will now be distributed from the Parliamentary Registration Department come April 3rd.
Central Grand Bahama is some 5,835 persons, followed by East Grand Bahama with 5,721. Marco City is in third with 5,550. Pine Ridge 4,870, and West Grand Bahama and Bimini with 4,806. We are seeing a very impressive increase in registration of first-time voters and the young people. They are significant, and they will play a significant role in this upcoming election.
Smith says despite some hiccups, the process has been a smooth one overall.
What we have discovered was that as a result of the registration of voters commencing on the 5th of October 2015, there were some persons who registered extremely early and forgot that they registered, and they came back again.
And as to what's next for the department once the election is called,
once Parliament would have been prorogued, persons will be allowed to register up until the day before. Once that time has expired, that's it. Nobody else would be able to register. And that's why we're encouraging, there's a little remnant left, a residue. We're encouraging them to come in now, because if you're watching the Parliament station, you can see clear indications that the time is not far away. Any day now, Parliament could be prorogued.
it's Talia Hall, ZNS Network News.
Since the passing of Hurricane Matthew last October, Grand Bahama Power Company crews have been working around the clock in their restoration efforts. Today, a company official gave an update, noting that their focus is still on repairing street lights and night guard lights across the island. Kimberly Mullings has more.
With much work still left to be done on Grand Bahama Island post-Hurricane Matthew, Grand Bahama Power Company Corporate Communications Officer Cleopatra Russell notes that the company carried out a safety stand-down after the unfortunate fatality of one of its contracted workers.
The purpose of that was for us to have our linemen and contractors just take a moment to reflect, as well as to be retrained on safety practices, because that is our #1 priority at the power company.
About 2,000, roughly 50% of streetlights were damaged by Matthew. Since then, 25% of them have been restored. Over 400 night guard lights were damaged as well.
We've repaired about 70 to 75% of those. Initially, what would have happened was customers would have needed to call in so as to not be billed for the night guard lights. Once the customers would have called in, anyone who would have been billed, we have since credited those accounts.
Russell says crews have successfully completed the lighting of all major thoroughfares and are now working on the side streets.
We have since completed the Mall Drive, East Sunrise, Midshipman, the Garnet Lavarity Highway, and parts of 8 Mile Rock. Our crews continue to push both east and west, working 12 and 14-hour days. We have contract crews and our linemen working on the restoration efforts to ensure that we get as much lights turned on as possible.
The Fishing Hole Road was a major area of concern for residents, which Russell says is now completely lit.
Naturally, we would have rebuilt our transmission and distribution system going into the western end of the island, because all of the poles, or the majority of those, were down. We would have worked over the weekend to complete that. We know that that's a major thoroughfare for individuals that live in the western end of the island, and that was a major priority for us.
GBPC's goal is to have Grand Bahama illuminated by the end of May and their restoration efforts complete. Russell says implementing a geographical information system is GBPC's next major project.
What that will do is help us for reliability for customers. That would allow us to inventory where we have every pole on the island, where we have a transformer, where that transformer is connected to. And that's also us doing preventative maintenance. That allows us to identify any issues that we need to address now before the 2017 hurricane season starts. So while we would have just come out of Matthew, we're also working towards making sure that we're proactively addressing issues to strengthen our grid.
By doing this, the power company hopes to enhance reliability for its customers. Kimberly Mullings, ZNS Network News.
In other news, police in Grand Bahama are investigating an armed robbery that occurred yesterday. Reports are that shortly before noon, a male armed with a handgun entered a business establishment in Russelltown, 8 Mile Rock, and robbed the employee before making good his escape on foot. A short time later, police arrested a 22-year-old man of Russelltown who is assisting them with their investigation into this matter. Stay with us, there's more news after this.